Looking for a guaranteed way to create content that resonates with your audience? Start a podcast, interview your ideal clients, and let them choose the topic of the interview. Because if your ideal clients care about the topic, there's a good chance the rest of your audience will care about it too. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Logan Lyles, Director of Partnerships here at Sweetfish Media. I am joined today by Tracy Yalensis. She is the VP of Global Marketing at Conduent. Tracy, how are you doing today?
Terrific, Logan. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I am really excited to dive into today's topic, talking about rebuilding a brand from the ground up. I think you have some very practical applications, especially given your recent experiences for our listeners today. Before we dive into that, let's shed a little light on who you are, why you're talking about this today. Let our listeners know a little bit about you and maybe what you and the team at Conduent are up to these days.
Sure, terrific. So again, my name is Tracy Yalensis, and I'm the VP of Global Marketing here at Conduent. And the genesis of this story really starts with our separation. We were a spinoff from Xerox Corporation, and we were the business services spinoff. And as we did that, we basically had to spin off from a company, separate all of our various businesses, and launch as a new company. And we basically had 11 months to do it. And so that's really the context that I wanted to share with you today.
I love it. So obviously a big challenge and a looming deadline. Where do you start with, building a brand with that sort of deadline, or rebuilding a brand to establish a new direction? What were some of the first things that you thought, okay, I have to start here before I take my first steps?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, when you're building any brand, right, the first thing you've got to think about is, what do you want this brand to stand for? And so as we looked at, oh my gosh, we're going to spin off into a brand new company, we really started with, how do we position this new company and what does it stand for? So we did a lot of work to really dig inside of all of the offerings that we had. And kind of, if you think about the business services that we are in, they're very much diversified. They span a lot of different industries. They span a lot of different capabilities. And so we had to look at it and kind of blur our eyes and try to find that golden thread that went throughout all of these different businesses. And so that's the first thing that we did, is we started with the positioning, before we even could think about what we were going to name this company, or, what the logo was going to look like.
Mm-hmm. So what were some of the exercises, or what did the conversations look like in that, blurring your eyes to kind of try and see the hidden pattern there? I'm reminded of, when I was a kid, at least, this magic eye books that you'd hold to your nose and try and take it away until you kind of found that hidden pattern. I like that analogy that you brought up here. How did you structure some of the conversations to dig into that with your team, Tracy?
Yeah, great question again. Really what we did is we dove into each and every business and really gleaned out, what is this business doing? What are the end users that we're touching? Who are their customers? And really just tried to understand each and every one of the businesses. And oh my gosh, we did interview after interview with the various general managers and practitioners in each one of these businesses. And then what we were able to do is just through listening, kind of just step back. And, you know, it really is kind of like you say, that blur your eyes activity where, you know, it's not like it comes to you or somebody says, you know, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we do. But after hearing story after story and asking them questions in the same way, we started to come up with this pattern that really positioned Conduent. Well, we weren't Conduent yet, we didn't have a name yet, but that positioned us as we were the business that enabled our clients to connect with their end users, whether that's in electronic tolling, whether that's in healthcare administration, whether that's in workers' compensation benefit claims. It didn't matter which business we were in. That's really the position at which Conduent sat.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were able to find that golden thread, as you put it. You alluded to something there, Tracy, in the way that you structured the interviews. It sounds like there was a systematic approach. Were you asking a lot of the same questions in the same ways to kind of get all of this data together so that it was able to kind of be digested by your team in a way that allowed for those patterns to come to the surface?
Absolutely. We had an interview script, and that interview script had a set of questions, and we really went after them one by one and asked the questions in the same way so that we could get a little bit of consistency in the answers. And hope, you know, the hope was you didn't know what you were going to get, but the hope was that you would come out with this golden thread at the end. And that proved really, really important, because as we had to go off and develop the name, how do you develop the name of a company? You can't really develop that name unless you can say what you want that name to convey. And so that's really how we ended up developing our name.
As you were going through the process, Tracy, was there a specific question or type of question that ended up yielding a lot of valuable information, or something that maybe surprised you in the process, as far as, you know, what question actually kind of yielded the most insights?
I would say it sounds kind of trite, I guess, but if you think about companies, you know, one of the things, the biggest question that we would go back and ask is, you know, who are your customers? What are their pain points? And what end user are they serving, and how? At the end of the day, that ended up being the thread. And you know, you think about marketing 101 is understand your audience and, you know, be able to find the relevant solutions to their pain points. I mean, that's really what it came down to. And, you know, one thing to keep in mind about our company, about Conduent, is before Xerox acquired them, it was a company that grew through acquisition. And so there were over 50 brands that made up this company. And they were all different companies. And they really had they were very diverse in nature. And in fact, when we were having some of the early interviews, you know, you would ask who their customer was. It was funny because I remember being on the phone with two people inside of the healthcare provider space and asking these two people who their customers were, and they named a customer by name. And I said, oh, so you have the same customer, because they both said the same customer name. And they were like, oh, no, they work with that department and I work with this department. So no, it's not the same customer. That's how disparate this business was. And so that's why we had to do all this work to really figure out, you know, who we were and what we stood for.
Today's growth story is about Lilliard Insurance Agency. The biggest challenge for one of their B2B sales agents was finding contact information for businesses that fit his target profile.
He was running out of time to meet his monthly sales goal, so he turned to simple internet searches. Too often, the information he found was old and unreliable. He was spending too much valuable selling time looking for email addresses and phone numbers that turned out to be inaccurate and unusable anyway. The rep, Sam Hoover, heard about Sales Genie from his manager, and that's when everything changed. Sam started using Sales Genie's powerful database access to build targeted lists and get the contact information he needed to work new leads. He was able to profile his best customers to find prospects that looked just like them. He even used Sales Genie to find ways to reach them with direct mail, email, and online marketing campaigns. Sam immediately increased his monthly sales production by 200%. Can Sales Genie help you drive similar sales results? Probably. Head over to salesgenie.com/B2B to get a demo and a free customer analysis. All right, let's get back into the show. Yeah, 11 months to consolidate over 50 brands. That is quite the undertaking. And digging into, I think you make a good point there, not just the logos that they serve. Who are the people on the other side? Because at the end of the day, if we're B2C or B2B marketers, we're reaching people and solving the problems for those individuals. So let's dig into what the day in the life is like of those end user customers. As you guys kind of rounded out this 11-month process, Tracy, what were a couple of the takeaways that you felt like stood out to you, kind of looking back as you guys launched the new brand in Conduent, began this new journey? Anything that kind of stood out to you or surprised you that you felt like either would be valuable to share with other listeners trying to build a brand or going through a rebranding, or something that maybe you wish you knew before you went into the process, which sounds like, it was obviously quite the undertaking.
Yeah. So, a couple of things stand out. One of them is, as we went into the naming exercise, we found this positioning for Conduent that we connect our clients with their end users. And so, or that end user could also be called a constituent. And so that's actually where the name Conduent came from. It came from connecting our clients with their constituents, and that ENT was a big part of that. So that gave us legs to talk about our name, to talk about what we did. And I think that was very important. And then as we were developing the logo, we actually went to a very famous agency. The agency name is Chermayeff, Geismar, and Haviv. And they've designed logos for National Geographic, Mobile, famous, iconic logos. And we really wanted our logo to be that vessel for storytelling. And we feel like we've got a really, really strong brand identity, a really very strong name. And so that was really, really important. And then, of course, we had to do all the other things like, convert all of those 50 brands into the Conduent brand and all of those activities. And how we did that was we created individual work streams for each and every one of those outlets of that brand. And that enabled us to take our very small team and, basically get a volunteer army to help us really drive each one of those work streams to completion and get all of those 50 brands and all of those legacy brands forced into the Conduent brand. So those are a couple of key things. But then the other thing that I would suggest is it was the communication. So we had calls, I can't tell you how many calls, week by week by week, with the senior leadership team, with the general managers for all the businesses, with the marketers for all the businesses. And we basically communicated until we thought we were, over communicating. But at the end of the day, people needed that. They needed to be brought along. And then the final thing that I think was really critical to our success in really launching this new company was the fact that we really did launch the company. as you can imagine, with all of that activity, it's exhausting, right? And by the time you get it all done, you're like, yay, we're done. But our CEO was very adamant that we created what we call Founders Day, that we launched this new company on January 3rd of 2017. And we had a celebration across all 400 plus sites. We rang the bell at the stock exchange. We shared pictures of all the celebrations on Yammer. And we also had a nice gala for our clients, as well as quickly following on a leadership conference for 1,100 employees, 1,100 of our top leaders. And it was that launch that I think really solidified the idea of, hey, we are this new company, we are Conduent, and it helped instill that in the hearts and minds of all of the employees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a very important lesson to think about the next phase as much as you want to take a breath after a sprint like that, looking forward to the next step and planning for it before that new launch gets there. It's definitely a good lesson to keep in mind. Tracy, this has been a really great conversation. I appreciate you sharing this story and some of the lessons learned as you're continuing on in this new role with Conduent. If anybody listening to this would like to ask any follow-up questions, stay connected with you, or learn more about what Conduent is doing in the market, what's the best way for them to reach out and go about doing that?
Sure. So they can either go to conduent.com and do a contact me, or follow me on LinkedIn. I'm at LinkedIn at Tracy Yalensis, all one word.
All right. Well, Tracy, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on the show today.
Great. Thank you so much, Logan.
Digital marketing agencies have a tough job. You have to stay on top of the latest marketing strategies for your clients and your agency. What if there was a way you could address both at the same time? Imagine your agency putting out content with greater quality and quantity. Envision bringing your clients a turnkey solution for one of B2B marketing's fastest growing media strategies, podcasting. You know, all those clients asking for your help with their account-based marketing efforts? Picture being the first to bring them the idea of content-based networking, showing them the proven strategy for breaking into their most coveted accounts. Here's the concept. Sweetfish Media is looking to work with a limited number of innovative agencies interested in a new partnership model. We produce a podcast for your agency. You introduce the power of podcasting and Sweetfish services to your clients. Everybody wins. Learn more at sweetfishpartners.com.